Welcome back to Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast, supported by Locol, here with Benji Nyson for the most shambolic Giro d'Italia Stage 16 recap. Oh my God, I can't, what did we just watch? Actually, we didn't watch anything. So we're going to now try and piece together on this podcast what on earth happened today on this Monday public holiday for some of you. All right, this is how it started. Early start because it's going up to high altitude in May. So they're starting early, so they finish early, and it's going to be a long stage. Original stage, 212 Ks with like 5,500 meters climbing, finishing in from Sicile to Cortina d'Ampezzo. Supposed to have La Crosetta, Passo Fedaia, Passo Pordoi, then Passo João, and then a descent to Cortina d'Ampezzo. It's going to be the hardest stage of cycling this year. We wake up, we start to hear a few little trickles. Few trickles on Twitter here and there. No official statements. I see apparently a meeting has been convened between CPA head Salvatore Rai, RCS with Veni, and the UCI commissaires. And what was the first sort of rumor you heard, Benji, that maybe they were cancelling the final descent or something like that?
Well, there were lots of rumors when it comes to the parkour. Some people were saying that they were thinking about first cancelling out the Fedaia climb, which was the second climb of the day, if you count from the start of the stage, because the first one of the day is not really the one we were looking for at the start of this adventure on today's stage. But they were looking at that Fedaia because that descent is quite treacherous. And then we heard a bit more about the Pordoi. And then eventually we also heard about, just in general, a shortening of the stage, very vague by lots of people. And
because of why?
Also, okay.
Why were they saying that?
So the weather on top of these climbs were roughly, I think it was 4 to 5 degrees at the moment that they were starting to talk about it. And there was a tiny bit of snow as they were talking about it. The roads were wet in the descent because it has been raining. That's normal because, in races you tend to have wet descents sometimes. And those were the main reasons that everybody was thinking of. But the reason that Salvato brought forward was because of the weather that could potentially change, and not because of the weather that is currently going on, but
it could get bad.
Exactly.
So I've got the official communique. So eventually the stage was shortened, and we eventually had a 153k stage taking out the middle two climbs, with the new Cima copy being Passo João. So we have the La Crosetta, 11k, 7%, a really long valley then falls flat of like 70, 80ks, and then a descent into Cortina d'Ampezzo. So lot of confusing things and people not really saying the truth, in my view, today. First of all, the stage was not shortened due to the extreme weather protocol being applied, because I've got the official press communique from the Giro d'Italia. They just say the stage been shortened. That's it. There's nothing even on what Veni, the head of RCS, what he said to on Rai, which is like their second methods of communicating to the public, is it goes from Veni to Rai to La Flamme Rouge Twitter, translated into English, and then to our eyes. So even they weren't saying the extreme weather protocol had been applied. And to remind you, the extreme weather protocol is applied when there's freezing rain, didn't have that, accumulation of snow on the road, never mentioned, strong wind, extreme temperatures, well, above freezing, like 5 degrees, I wouldn't say is extreme up at those altitudes. You'd expect it almost, poor visibility and air pollution. So the extreme weather protocol wasn't applied. Even if there was disagreement, the RCS, the organizer, and the president of UCI commissaires has the last decision, not the CPA, on extreme weather protocol being applied. So what really was the reason for it being shortened? It came out when Venu gave a bit more color to it, was we were worried that it might be a bit weird today. We want the riders to like ride the race in full, and we shortened it, which basically seems to me to be they shortened it because they don't want the breakaway to win again, and they want a GC contender to win the race and to have a proper GC race, which is pretty bullshit reason for shortening it. According to all the riders, Caruso and Carthy beforehand, none of the riders weren't requesting that it was shortened. And yet, their CPA representative, Salvato, who's supposed to be their mouthpiece, their union mouthpiece, has agreed with Venu to shorten the race, which is a little bit weird to me, Benji, because surely if someone speaking for you is doing something you don't agree with, he's just your collective voice. That doesn't really make sense to me. So I think there definitely must have been some riders not wanting to do the full stage, which fine, whatever. But it's just a bit annoying afterwards to have the teams now coming out saying, "Oh, we want to do the full stage." Of course, we want to do the full stage. Do you think there's a little bit, Benji, of them being worried about the criticism they received after Morbenio last year, and they're trying to avoid that?
I think that's the case, but also we had, before the stage started, a few teams already saying that. You said it. Caruso was one of the first riders to mention it, but also EF was a very forthcoming team about it. We heard that TJ Van Garderen this morning said to Garfield, looking outside of his window, "It's raining. We can win the Giro today." And, Garfield, at the interview at the start, also said, "I want to do the full 212K. Like, I want to do all the climbs." So he was very clear about wanting to do that because he had plans for today. And that's what I hate most about this decision. Like, I'm all for safety. And I'm all for safety decisions that go for the riders and so forth. But always, I do feel bad for every single rider that had a plan for a day like today and was not able to put that plan out there, because this decision influences the sporting merit of today's stage, in my honest opinion. And that really sucks.
But if you're going to change it for safety, they didn't even. If you're going to change it for safety,
yeah.
take out the descent to the finish. That's what
They
doesn't
won't
make
do
sense.
That. They won't
exactly.
Do that.
So
you know
safety's
why?
not as because of money. Because Cortina d'Ampezzo paid for the finish in Cortina, so they take out the middle two and they still keep the descent finish rather than finishing on Passo João. In my view, it's safer to have the descents off Fadaya and Pordoi and then finish on the top of Passo João, because the descents might be controlled because the race might not have opened up on those descents, whereas you've got the descent at the end, people are going to take risks, one would think. So this decision doesn't seem to me to have been taken entirely because of safety. It's just another view, which we're going to get to, is that perhaps Rai said to RCS, we're going to really struggle to broadcast any of this today, and RCS decided to shorten it as well. But anyway, it was shortened. It is what it is. Maybe more information will come out, but it was very weird to have a shortened stage because extreme weather may have happened. I mean, if that's the case, it's going to be difficult to schedule proper high mountain stages in the Giro ever again in the future, because of course that can happen. Maybe, Benji, they needed Le Col jackets to keep them warm on this stage. If you want to check out our show partner, Le Col, they don't have anyone in World Tour right now. Maybe they needed drops Le Col to do the full stage today, Benji, in the Le Col kit. You can get 20% off using LRCP20, the code, also on top of already discounted items. But yeah, check out the Le Col kit. They support the podcast. They're produced at the base of Monte Grappa in Bassano del Grappa, which we saw a couple of days ago. The Cittadella start in the Giro, the Zoncolan stage, and they got some new mountain drops for the mountains for summer in Europe, which I'm now in. I just got a few of them, and I'm ready to test them out in the mountains in Andorra. Thanks to Le Col for supporting the podcast. How are you feeling about your picks of Almeida, etc., Benji? How did that change the sporting aspect of the race? More likely for a break to win, or less likely because less time to control? What did it change?
It's difficult. I was already a bit doubting yesterday whether a team would control and so forth, but all in all, I think that the breakaway that did potentially form, we'll talk about it in a second, would...
Oh no, go for it. Who was it?
Okay, who was in the breakaway? It was a pretty large breakaway, including the likes of Dan Martin, pretty close in GC. Almeida was in the breakaway. Nibali, Pedrero, we had Jorge Izaguirre. We also had Formulo in there. A bunch of other riders.
For Nibali.
Yeah, Gebrek Zabir, that's correct, as a domestique for Nibali. And the last ones I named there, Gebrek Zabir, Nibali, Almeida, Formulo, and Izaguirre, and Pedrero, those riders... those were able to drop the other contenders in the breakaway on the first kilometer day, just on the first kilometer day. And, well, Almeida and Nibali in the breakaway, I was pretty hyped about it. Almeida for the pick, Nibali because he's the GOAT. And, well, that's just my opinion. I'll just add that. Anyway, after the first climb, they had that tiny lead on the next group, but that lead just kept on expanding because the second group ain't going to work together. But in the peloton, well, you've got Dan Martin in the breakaway, or had in the front breakaway on the first climb. You had Almeida in the breakaway, and he's still on roughly 4 minutes ahead of the peloton, expanding to 5 minutes. Ineos starts spacing. Ganna starts hammering it after that first climb. So, indeed, the thing is more about who was in the breakaway than the stage itself. And if there's dangerous people in the breakaway, then the peloton's going to pace. If there's no dangerous people in the breakaway, the peloton's not going to pace. And I think that's what we saw today, because the second that Ineos caught that second group with Dan Martin and so forth, they didn't pace that much anymore because another team took over, and that was EF Education First. So just like that, EF Education First was probably pretty worried about Almeida in the breakaway, 4 minutes ahead, 4 minutes 50, because that could take over the spot for Garfi and GC. So you've got all these little games, and I'm not sure whether EF did it to try and catch Almeida again, or they did it to try and go for the stage, but it's very coincidental that it's just at that moment. So I don't know. I think that it's more about who was in the breakaway compared to the stage itself being an influence, personally.
Yeah, it looked like it just meant there was less time or there's that long valley, which would have made it easier for riders like Ganna and Moscon to control. I thought the break had a decent chance, but the problem was they were on those 8 minutes, etc. At this point, we started to get some coverage issues dropping in and out. I'm not sure when they started exactly, to be honest. I was pretty pissed off at how the whole day had gone about.
On the first climb already?
Yeah, the coverage started dropping out. I was like, what am I doing, like, watching this? And then I was like, actually, you get paid to do this. So I was like, I better watch it. But, I mean, for you guys, like, what are you doing watching this? Wasting your day, 5 hours or whatever. And it's, we'll talk in detail about the coverage issues later. But, it was disappointing to have that. The stage changed for weird reasons and muddied reasons, and then to have coverage dropouts is really disappointing. Eventually, EF pacing, and when EF started pacing, you're like, break's done, because Gebregs would be a massive job for Nibali, he's pulling so hard all day, but then EF made that big difference with TJ Van Garderen on the flat was really good in that valley, bringing that gap down, and they had the gap at about 4 minutes before this little climb, before the Caprile, the Colle Santa Lucia, I think, before Passo João. They brought that gap to about 3 minutes. They kept pacing. Then the gap was at like 140. There was a descent before Passo João. We saw Pedrero attack on that descent because he probably knows he's not as strong on the climbs as, say, Almeida or Formolo. And he was followed by Gorka Izagirre, who nearly came off the road and ran into the back of a car. He nearly hurt himself very badly, just managed to save it. And so the break gets onto Passo João in dribs and drabs, and they're like all doing their own they're all like 10 meters away from each other. Almeida, Formolo goes clear in a big ring, massive pain face. Pedrero's getting caught. And they're stuffed. They're absolutely cooked. I think Nibali had been dropped. They were down to 120. EF still pacing. I think then with Bettiol at the base of Passo João, huge work from him. They're minus Ruben Guerrero too. And then it was Simon Carr time, Benji. And I mean, explain to people maybe who weren't watching the preseason races, where have we seen him perform well before? And a little bit of background about, Simon Carr.
I'll call him Simon Carr. And I found it pretty crazy that I was doing that, because I'm pretty sure you weren't allowed to draft behind the car. Okay, sorry.
Oh, mate. Nah, come on.
Nah. We know Carr from, I think, February to the Provence. He was doing well there. I think Bessèges was actually the one.
Marseillaise too.
Marseillaise too, yes. One of those races, or two of those races, he was performing well in, attacking very vividly from the elite group going into the last few hills in those races. We know that he can climb. We know that he can climb decently on pretty longer climbs as well, not necessarily only the 1K climbs. So yeah, genuinely a really good performance that he set up today, even being there at that point, knowing that basically everybody was gone and we didn't see what happened. So Simon Carr,
it cuts out. We've got Almeida or I think like 30 seconds, or Pedrero 30 seconds ahead of them. We know the GC group is going to win the stage. At that point, on the halfway up Passo João, coverage cuts out. And we're like, what the hell is going on? Gone. Comes back a second later. We see a GC group of like 6 riders. Carr, Carthy, Martinez, Bernal, Caruso, and Yates just hanging off the back. And Roman Bardet. So group of 7. Yates just yo-yoing off the back. Coverage goes out again. Like, what the hell's going on? Coverage comes back. And we see they seem to have they haven't caught the break yet. We see that Martinez is on the front, Carr is gone, Carthy hasn't attacked, Yates has been dropped, and Bernal's attacked. We're like, what the hell? And it looks like Bernal's spoken to Martinez, and Martinez wasn't feeling so good. He attacks. That gaps. I think everyone except Carthy initially, coverage cuts out again. And we don't know what's happening. Comes back 5 minutes later. Bernal is on his own. We've never seen this race-winning attack. 3 seconds of footage, goes out again. And that's pretty much all the rest of the images we saw. I mean, if you want to watch the stage in full, the best option, I think, is to watch Benji's Pro Cycling Manager video. Probably more exciting, to be honest, than the absolute fast. Or I guess I don't even have the Cor Vos photos right now. I mean, some of the Cor Vos photos is probably the best way to watch this race. I mean, what a disgrace to have all the riders, training for so long. Like, stage shortening aside, okay, that's a minor issue, and it probably was safe for what they did. Fine, that's fine. But to have riders still doing dangerous conditions, they're out there in the cold, sponsors are paying millions of euro for them, for the exposure at these races. It's supposed to be the second biggest race in the world, to have literally no coverage, pretty much no coverage of the second half of Passo João, no coverage of the descent. So apparently we saw Bernal went ahead on he crested João with like 40 seconds on Caruso, 35 on Caruso, 45 on Bardet. Yates was gone, 240 back. Evenepoel gone, like he's like 20 minutes back. Almeida doing okay, and then nothing on the descent. And we're waiting for Bernal. Like, we're just going to see him when he comes into town, pretty much. So after all that, the GC winning attack for the day and the stage winning attack, didn't see it. And we just see Bernal come into town. What an anticlimax, taking off his jacket and winning like 30 seconds ahead of Caruso. But yeah, what's at play with this coverage, Benji? I saw you were watching some Instagram live feed. Like, is it true there's no 4G signal up there?
No, that's not true. So they had the plane wasn't able to take off again, and then they had the 4G for a bit, and the 4G kept falling away. And there was one guy, Igor is his name, on Instagram. His name is Igor Tavella, and he was able to broadcast without any issue, and even said live as an answer to my question. I asked, are you broadcasting through 4G, 3G, whatever, Wi-Fi in the neighborhood? I don't know. And he said he had very strong Wi-Fi, very strong 4G on top of the Passo João. And to be honest, the extra thing towards that, they shortened the stage due to change in weather. And the weather did change. The snow stopped. So, yeah.
It's a real shame. Like, you can probably hear my disappointment. I just really want to see the Giro d'Italia, and who to blame. RCS have to be blamed. I don't feel like there's some sort of victim. RCS are receiving millions of euro from broadcasters, etc., for the rights to show the Giro d'Italia, and they cannot consist. How many times? How many times during the Giro d'Italia, Benji, have I said, well, maybe Eurosport really should get a reduced fee so that, this is not just in the mountains. It's not just when there's extreme conditions. A bit of light rain coverage fucked. A bit of whatever coverage gone. They don't even film the sprints properly at the end. And it's like, why do you keep using Rai, who are the host broadcasts, if they can't do it? UCI for Imola Worlds last year didn't use Rai. I wonder why they didn't use Rai, because they didn't think they could do it properly. They used another host, maybe the Dutch one, Benji. You might know better, but it's just a joke. And I think the only solution, if they're going to keep using Rai, is don't have stages in the high mountains in May. Otherwise, and then it comes down to Cortina, which is in town. They still have surely they have 4G signal in Cortina d'Ampezzo, and they're just having to use the fixed cameras. So, I know there was a lot of there is a funny side of it. Like, the memes on Twitter were funny about, I think Nairo Quintana and Green had Mikel Landa appearing out of the mist, with a steel chair to win the stage. And that is all funny, but I just think it's a real shame. And it kind of makes the race a bit of a joke. And if the RCS want the Giro to be treated as seriously as the Tour and other races, then broadcast it better. Or if the person you're having broadcast can't do the job properly, find someone else or find a solution. I don't really feel sorry for them. I feel sorry for the riders, pretty much. Any other thoughts on that, Benji?
Yeah, I feel the same. And to the extreme, to the fact that with every drop of rain, we know that the night coverage is going to drop. And a lot of people will be pointing at, they can't put their plane in the air. But with every raindrop so far, we've had the coverage drop. I don't believe that every raindrop is causing extreme weather above the bloody airport. And even next to that, everybody else in other countries are able to broadcast in rain.
Sion
Why is Rai
2000.
not able to do that? Additionally, funniest spot of all that I heard from someone that is doing LFR, La Flamme Rouge on Twitter. They had a basketball game in Italy a few weeks ago inside a palace. And due to the weather outside of the palace, Ryan was unable to broadcast the event as well. So it's not cycling only for them.
Today, we had like a 1-1 race or something in France that was in the mountains and had rain. Perfect coverage, I think. The Mercantour Classic Alpes-Maritimes. Tour de Romandie a couple of weeks ago, terrible conditions, raining. We had almost perfect coverage. Also going up to 2,000 meters, 2,100 meters in 2,000. So it seems to be maybe there's some sort of geographic reason. Maybe someone with more technical knowledge can say, does Italy have weird aviation laws that do not allow the planes to fly? Are they using outdated planes? What's the answer? Because this is a continual problem. And yeah, I wouldn't blame people for turning off their TV. And I feel bad for Egan Bernal as well. Hopefully they've recorded some of the images. But here's actually, we'll go back to what sort of happened with the race. Coming behind Egan Bernal, not massive gaps. Bardet second, huge for him. He caught Caruso on the descent. Third, Caruso, same time as Bardet. Ciccone fourth. I'm nearly going to write him a formal apology to him and his family, but I'm not quite yet. He's fourth on 118. Carthy 119. Almeida hit 121. He kept going from the break. Vlasov had like a jacket issue apparently on the climb. It was at 211. Izagirre 231 before the climb, and that just put him out for Passo João. And we don't know. Benji and I don't know what happened.
He was attacked by a dragon at the bottom.
Could happen. Formolo 9th, 233, same time as Tobias Foss. Simon Yates losing 237 to Egan Bernal. Other GC victims, don't really know. The GC, the big changes. Yates moves down. He's on 420 behind Bernal now. It moves down to 5th. Caruso jumps up on 224. Carthy, probably not the outcome they wanted, but he still jumps up too because of Vlasov and Yates having a bad day on 340. Ciccone 431 near Vlasov and Yates. Bardet moves up 2 to 7th on 5 minutes. Martinez on 8th. Foss moves up. Almeida moves up 10th on 10 minutes. But yeah, what about who's the big winner and the loser today, Benji? Bernal, obviously, but any other ones? Bardet?
I think Caruso is definitely one of the bigger winners today. Caruso is still in second now in GC, or was third, I think, before he, was third before the stage. Is now in second on 224 in GC, and that is 116 ahead of anybody else. And he's got a better time trial. So Caruso is destined for the second spot in the Giro, and I bloody love that because so many times he has to start as domestique. Sometimes his leader falls out, and he has to take over. He takes up the mantle, and he bloody well does it. Like Damiano Caruso, genuinely, the overperformance of this entire Giro by far at the moment, and I love it. Tobias Foss, really good performance, and as expected, Dan Martin unable to beat those likes of riders like a Foss and Almeida because the descents are there. I put it on Twitter yesterday, going through the entire Dan Martin debacle again, and I looked at the entire stage that was planned to happen, and all those ascents were making him, not going to come into the top 10 by the end of this Giro, and it seems to be like that in the end as well. Daniel Felipe Martinez with a really good performance. Bardet indeed moving up a lot, and also saving himself a bit because, well, he's now 2 minutes 20 ahead of Foss, and that means that NGC has got a bit more of a margin going into that final time trial as well, but we're not there yet. We've got stages beforehand, and I think Almeida is definitely a big mental winner in the team of the Koenig. I think that Remco topped the Passo João with 20 minutes behind. He finished on 25 minutes today. He was dropping, I think, just after the first climb of the day. So definitely a horrendous day for the lad. I think he's not going to start after the rest day, personally.
I just don't know. Him out. They got to. I thought he was going to get in the car.
Portuguese fans are going to fume if they take him out if he doesn't work for Almeida now.
He finished the stage 24 minutes behind Bernal. What's the point?
Yeah, I get it. I agree.
And just because they made the mistake, probably with Almeida, doesn't mean they still shouldn't take him out. It's a waste of his time being there now, unless he does go for stages. Almeida, I feel sorry for him for sure, but he also lost that time. And when you lose the time, yeah, you're putting yourself in that tricky situation. We
Yeah.
do have some more. The Giro
Wait,
is
wait,
not
wait.
necessarily over. It's not.
I have
It's not
something
over
to
yet,
add
though.
for him.
Oh yeah,
I've got
Almeida.
something to add for Almeida. And the thing is, I expect a lot of people to be like, oh, but they shouldn't have gone for Remco then after Almeida last time. But
He lost like
that's
4
a
minutes.
hindsight 2020 discussion, because Almeida lost 4 minutes on the first proper climbing stage of this Giro. It was the wisest decision from the Koenig to not go for him from that point onwards. They had no knowledge on what his performance was going to be after that.
Yeah.
And he performed better than expected. Remco performed very well for the first week, so that decision seemed to work out very well in the first week. But just towards the second week, that Montalcino stage blew up Remco, and I think by the stage after Montalcino stage, was that already Zoncolan? I think there was one before that was a bit mountains where Remco lost time as well. And the point there is that from that point onwards, you know that it's the legs. Until Montalcino, you know that it could be bike handling, it could be that. We said it on the podcast that evening. And from the stage after it that you lost time on the climbing sections themselves, that's where you know it's the legs. Should we even pull back Almeida on Zoncolan, for example, which they did? I don't know. That was perhaps the lesser decision, in my opinion. But that's also hindsight, looking at the stage of it as well.
Yeah,
But
it's not like Foss and Bennett. We
yeah,
disagree with when Foss had done a good job and he's up there dropping him back. Then we sort of disagree with that. But Almeida had lost the time, so it's like it's tough in hindsight to criticize that too much. This Giro might not necessarily be over. Bernal's gap on GC 224 to Caruso. I know it looks over. And yes, he is the short favourite to win. But we've got some tough stages to come. We've got the rest day tomorrow. And then straight after that, we've got a 194K stage, which has got 15Ks at 7.6%. The Paso San Valentino descent, and then straight into 11.5Ks at 10% with some steep sections. I mean, that's probably just means Bernal will gain more time, but, it takes one bad day. We'll preview the rest of the third week in more detail in our rest day recap tomorrow. Just some, I guess, final thoughts, Benji, to flesh out the other I just saw on Twitter, CPA Cycling tweeted, "Congratulations to all riders who honoured the Queen stage of the Giro, and RCS Sport for accepting the athlete's request to shorten it. At the end, there was no lack of entertainment and safety was guaranteed." I mean, it doesn't say the reason to shorten it. So it seems to be a dangerous precedent now to be shortening stages the morning of it because of no extreme weather protocol. I know we're relitigating this issue from the start, but this is either a power grab by CPA Cycling because they're trying to compete and show they're better than the Riders Union, or the athletes did request to shorten it, or a couple requested and they're like, this is our opportunity to flex our muscles. And just the language they're using is a bit weird, who honoured the Queen stage of the Giro. And I think that goes to what RCS won't have been happy about recently, the last couple of weeks, which is the breakaways keep winning and there's no GC action, which is the worst for interest in the race. We know that from the podcast metrics. When breakaway wins and Ineos and the Peloton ride in after no attacks with 8 minutes behind, there's limited interest in that stage generally. And I think I think the tweet from CBA is complete bullshit. Safety wasn't guaranteed any more so than having those descents. I mean, they had a wet descent into Cortina d'Ampezzo that was pretty sketch off Passo João, snowbanked, and there was no entertainment because we couldn't see shit. So, yeah, anything you'd like, any last thoughts you'd like to have on today? The coverage, Benji, the shortening, how are you feeling? A bit of a sour taste in your mouth, or you're a bit more lighthearted than me about these things, I guess?
Yeah, it has a sour taste in the mouth. It beheaded the Giro, in my opinion. Like, honestly, I feel like that. And I think the only thing that saved it for me was the fact that I was able to make memes on Twitter about it. And I very much enjoyed that. But it's a disgrace for cycling today. Like, I don't get it.
More so the coverage. The coverage is more of a disgrace. I think. Do you think the fans, because there's a lot of people who are like, I personally, when I see photos of the guys riding in the snow from 25 years ago, I think that's ridiculous. They shouldn't, you can't be requiring people to do that. But you have to draw a line somewhere. And if there's snow on the road, extreme weather protocol applies, 100% cancel it, neutralize it, all for that. But I just think it's weird what they've done today, and it just seems to me that Venyi or Rai or something needs to change. Or Venyi, he seems to have no power to say no. We're going to do the full stage. And okay, let's end it on a fun note, Benji. What's your best conspiracy theory for what happened today, and which can include what happened on the final climb, which we didn't see?
I think that they knew in advance that the coverage was going to be so bad.
Don't steal mine.
Okay, it's yours. Okay, I'll let you share it then.
Go.
Okay. I think that they knew in advance that the coverage was going to be so bad on every single climb we wouldn't see anything from the race anyway. And therefore, they decided to take out 2 of the climbs to not have it be that obvious. But I think that they made a mistake in their logic there. I think they should have just pretended like the stage was like it was. Have the riders stop in the middle for a good half an hour for the time it should take to take the Fidaya and the Pordoi. Pretend to the people all around that they're riding up the Fidaya and the Pordoi. And we would never have realized it.
Maybe they did. Maybe they did it in record time, Benji, and we just didn't see it.
Yeah.
Maybe Bernal just set the record on both those climbs. I don't know. My theory is similar to that, and also add to the mix CPA trying to flex their power, add to the mix RCS and Venyi. I mean, we're seeing a lot of these honor the race stuff, weirdly, also in the CPA's language. I think that is to do with they were really, really concerned that Ineos would let a 15-minute gap go out to the break today. And there'd be... But I don't know why they were concerned about that, because there would have been GC action. So the RCS stuff must have played into it as well. Maybe the pros can let us know as well. I mean, hopefully, were there any crashes today either? But it just seems to... I think Venyi, if I was RCS at the top, I'd be like, you can't manage this properly.
He's leaving at the end of the year, apparently.
Yeah, the rules are the rules. Like, if the extreme weather protocol doesn't apply and it's safe, and you have the ultimate say, and Rai can cover it, do the full stage. If it does apply, stop it. If it starts to apply during the stage, neutralize the descent or stop the race. I think, yeah, weird today, but we'd love to hear what you think down below. If you hit us up with any questions, we can respond in the rest day pod tomorrow. We love to answer questions. If you want to ask, is the Giro over? Any other questions from the first 2 weeks? And basically, maybe let us know, what did you do today when you were trying to watch the race? What did you flick to? Were you on Twitter? I watched the Lupin first season on Netflix. Let us know that. But otherwise, we'll see you for the rest day recap tomorrow. And ciao.